Opening shot, Cook County State's Attorney Eileen O'Neill Burke celebrates 1 year on the job and speaks out about the problems facing the electronic monitoring system of criminal justice offenders. Now, Burke spoke at the City Club of Chicago today and acknowledged the painful realities of that system of electronic monitoring. It's, of course, where a judge determines an offender is too dangerous to be completely released before their trial, but perhaps not dangerous enough to lock up behind bars. So Burke says the program gives the illusion that it's keeping the community safe.
It's not my preference. If somebody is a danger, I do not want them on electronic monitoring. So, but if they're not a danger and a judge doesn't feel comfortable releasing them, that it's almost like a split the baby kind of thing. If we're asking for detention, judges will say, well, I don't want to detain him, but I'm not going to just release him. I'll put him on electronic monitoring. And that's a false equivalency. It makes people feel safe, and they are not safe.
Now, the problems with the program have received renewed scrutiny after the Loop CTA arson attack, where the suspected offender, Lawrence Reed, was released by a judge onto electronic monitoring for the previous crime of punching a nurse in the face. And this is despite the fact that O'Neill Burke's prosecutors asked for him to be locked up. It was later revealed he was in violation of the home confinement when he allegedly reoffended. Now, the problems come amid a massive transition, where the Cook County Sheriff's Office is dumping the entire program onto the responsibility of the Cook County Chief Judge. O'Neill Burke reflected what previous Chief Judge Tim Evans claimed, that his office has no way of actually policing violations.
When somebody is AWOL or is not in compliance with their electronic monitoring, what used to happen with the sheriff is they would go out and get them and bring them into court. The personnel under the Chief Judge's office are pretrial services officers. They are not law enforcement. They cannot go and arrest someone. There is no standardized protocol. Sometimes a pretrial services officer might have 20 alerts before they bring a violation. Sometimes it's 5. There's no standard involved. So, yes, I think we need to make sure that there is a law enforcement component of, if somebody is not in compliance, to have the ability to go and get them.
And all this comes as a new chief judge is sworn in. That's Charles Beach, who took the oath of office yesterday. And Eileen O'Neill Burke expressed confidence that Beach will work with her to come up with a solution here. And as if on cue, Judge Beach issued a statement this afternoon vowing a, quote, urgent review of this system, especially how to communicate better. Quote, we are committed to a transparent, evidence-based review that enhances accountability, improves coordination, and reinforces the public's trust in our justice system, acknowledging the fact that there must be other agencies brought in here to help police this sprawling program. Now, Beach is vowing preliminary recommendations by January. Tonight, a group of Chicago City Council members tells the mayor, we have our own budget proposal without a corporate head tax. So what's in it, and will it have the votes? Northwestern University agrees to a $75 million settlement with the Trump administration that'll unlock nearly $800 million in federal grants. Why some students and faculty members say that's capitulation. And a Chicago-based Turkish asylum seeker is detained by immigration authorities right as his wife becomes a naturalized U.S. citizen. How she's trying to get him back. Welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for spending part of this chilly, frigid actually, Tuesday evening with us. A group of Chicago alders see the mayor's proposed budget, and today they're raising him a budget of their own. Most notably, their version does away with the mayor's proposed corporate head tax, which already has been voted down in City Council. And today, Mayor Johnson stuck firm, saying the budget should be balanced more on the backs of the wealthy than on working-class Chicagoans.
We're asking corporations, 3% of them, to help us balance the budget with essentially an amount of dollars that account for about 1.6% of our overall budget. My question is, why are they working so hard to protect the people who already have their protector, which is Donald Trump?
And joining us now is one of those city council members, Scott Waguespack of the 32nd Ward. Alderman Waguespack, always good to see you. So,
thanks for having me.
You bet. Is your budget balancing its whole on the backs of the working class in favor of the rich?
Absolutely not. What we've done is crafted a budget that we can say we're going to hit the reset button, get aldermen back to the table, show some leadership here, and wrest away this budget from the mayor that is basically a head tax that's a job killer, and borrowing and other types of funding that cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in the long run.
And I want to look at some of the highlights of that budget. So you mentioned no corporate head tax, but you are talking about $55 million increasing the garbage collection fee from about $9.50 to $18. Couldn't that hurt some of the middle-class Chicagoans that pay that tax in their bungalows or their apartments?
Well, we haven't raised that garbage tax in a long time. We actually pay $55 for that, and taxpayers are paying $9. So basically, we're going to raise that incrementally. That's one of the options on the table that we have to discuss, because government does cost, but what we're trying to do is reduce it for working families and seniors. And
there's also a $48 million rideshare congestion fee. How much would that be per ride in the loop, and what would be the geographic area?
Well, I think the geographic area that the mayor's looking at is expanding goes pretty far. What we've said is, do we need to go that far? Ask more questions on it. What can we do to mitigate that for a lot of people, especially those who work late at night? We have aldermen who are very concerned about that. We have put all these options on the table because we had a $3.5 million Ernst & Young report that said, here's all these efficiencies, here's all these potential revenue options that the city has let go for a long time. What we're saying is, Mayor, you need to stop and listen to the aldermen, you need to stop and listen to taxpayers, and start doing what's right by them instead of pushing these policies that are job killers and cost taxpayers hundreds of millions.
And you say you wanted him to adopt more of those EY report recommendations, which recommended efficiencies and cuts. So what are you putting in there from that report?
Well, there are things like cutting the vice mayor position, basically removing some of the funding from aldermanic offices.
It's like $500,000, but that was Walter Burnett, who's gone now.
Yeah, and that money needs to go back into the corporate fund. There's a lot of other areas that I think are important for us to look at when you look at procurement, when you look at fleet services, when you look at debt collection. You know, this mayor has basically allowed $2 billion in debt over the last 2 years to accrue under his watch. That can't happen. We have an EY report that shows over $1 billion of potential efficiencies and revenue options. What does he take? 12 million of that. 12 million of over $1 billion. So he's clearly not doing the job that the taxpayers are asking for, that the city council is asking for. What we've done, working with municipal experts on both the finance budget side, a broad group of people basically come forward and said, here are all the options that should be on the table. Let's reset the button and start over again.
One of those options, a $26 million augmented reality tax, which sounds like it could mean any number of things. What is that?
Yeah, essentially that's, in layman's terms, that would be basically looking at gaming and making sure that we can tap into that if we need to. And that is an option that's on the table because it's been basically kind of let go for a long time.
Okay, augmented reality doesn't mean you take some gummy product and
no,
and you pay a tax because your reality is augmented.
No, it doesn't mean that.
Not that I know what that's like,
but there are a lot of options in here. If you read the EY report, like I said, over $1 billion worth. What we've said is compiled those from different aldermen. A lot of aldermen have put a lot of effort in over the last few months and said, here are a lot of options for us. And the mayor's basically said, we really don't care. We're going to go forge ahead with our policies that we want. And what we're saying is hit the reset button, protect taxpayers instead of forging ahead. And I would point out that if he moves forward with his budget, if he gets those votes, we're looking at a credit downgrade for this city, another one on his watch. We were moving forward under the last administration. We left him with a budget surplus. And what we have now is a $1.2 billion gap. And we're going to have another $1 billion plus next year as well.
And you're recommending taking far less money in the TIF accounts and declaring them as surplus. The mayor's saying he'd declare a record TIF surplus. That'll help close the budget hole. Why do you think that's not necessarily a good idea?
Well, number one, the TIF is there for economic development. So a lot of areas that need economic development, whether it's affordable housing, mixed-use development, infrastructure, that has all been stripped away by his budget surplus, or TIF surplus. So what we're saying is, let's pull some of that back, make sure that the projects that are ready to roll can move forward so that we have that economic investment that we need in this city.
Do you have 26 votes to pass this as a budget document? And
Well, the letter that we put out today has 25, 26 aldermen. We're in discussions with other ones. A lot of people who I think are going to look at it and say, hey, I know it's a big document, but we've spent the last several weeks doing the work that the mayor wouldn't, that the mayor refused to do by saying, no, we're not going to listen to what you guys want. So we're resetting it here. And I think we could potentially have the votes, but this isn't a vote on this particular document. It's saying, let's get back to the table. I'm not saying we have to vote on our particular thing. I know the mayor thinks that, but unfortunately, he's not in the room, and we have to do the work that they won't.
As I said, he showed his cards, and now you're showing your cards, and this will be a fascinating process over the next couple of weeks before you finally vote on a budget. Alderman Waguespack, thanks for visiting.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. And when we come back, did Northwestern capitulate to the Trump administration with a $75 million payoff? Right after this. Welcome back. Northwestern University becomes the latest major academic institution to cut a deal with the Trump administration to unlock hundreds of millions in grant funding. In exchange, the school will agree to pay $75 million and combat anti-Semitism on campus, prevent so-called DEI-driven admissions and hiring policies, and a ban on gender transitioning care for youth under the age of 18. But did the school capitulate? Joining us tonight is political science professor Jacqueline Stevens, who is the NU chapter president of the American Association of University Professors. Professor Stevens, thank you for speaking with us tonight. We mentioned the terms of this deal. Is this a fair deal, or is this a capitulation to a so-called bully?
Well, and there's 2 points. First, we actually don't know the exact terms of the agreement. You mentioned that there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars restored. However, the grants are actually tied to references to appendices A and B, and those are not provided in the attachments to the agreement. And when I requested those appendices, I received a response on Sunday saying that the list of impacted grants were not included in the original agreement, and that as soon as the government concludes their review of the grants and posts them, we will make them available on our website. And so, I'm very concerned that President Biden signed something without having final government sign off on exactly what it is that the consideration will be in exchange for the $75 million.
So you're saying there's nothing...
In addition to the concerns about the capitulation, there's actually a really substantive question as to what exactly Northwestern's supposed to be obtaining in exchange for that $75 million.
So there's nothing in writing saying they're going to get all that grant money, whether it be for cancer research or some other kind of research or what have you, that hasn't been spelled out. That seems to be fairly daunting then, since Northwestern has agreed to do these things and spend $75 million. I mean, does that sound like a ransom payment? That grant money was supposed to come to the university regardless.
Correct. And people use the word ransom or extortion. There's no really logical, practical reason why that money should be going to the Trump administration and not staying with Northwestern to support education and research.
And in terms of some of the other things here, they want to, there are some pro-Israel students who are celebrating this, especially getting rid of anti-Semitism. And then what's been called the Deering Meadow Agreement that gave some concessions to Muslim students. First of all, quickly remind us the Deering Agreement and the consequences of getting rid of this.
Right. So the Deering Meadow Agreement was something that was worked out between then President Michael Schill and some other administrators and students who were representing people who had set up an encampment on the Northwestern campus protesting at the ethnocracy of Israel and also the mass killings on the part of the Israeli government. And in exchange, and so originally Schill billed the agreement and the policies to end the encampment as recognition of the importance of the students' ability to protest and to recognize their concerns as legitimate. It turns out that the only reason that he did this was because the mayor of Evanston refused Schill's repeated requests for mass arrests. We found that out later. And the Deering Meadow Agreement provided a number of things, including some support for foreign students, scholars from Palestine, a Middle East, North Africa / Muslim house, and the reinitiation of an oversight committee for Northwestern's investments. And it's really, there's so much doublespeak. There's just like a kind of cacophony of nonsense that is coming out of the administration right now as to what exactly they've committed to in this agreement. And there are just a lot of contradictions between what they've stated in writing and what they're saying on the website. So it's not really clear exactly what's going to happen. Just like they violated the commitment to the Deering Meadow Agreement by saying that they terminated it with no consultation with the faculty or students, it's not clear what exactly they're going to be upholding when they're responding to this particular resolution.
And I should mention that I did reach out to the president's office, President Beenan at Northwestern, and did not hear back. The alternative here, regardless of whether we think these are unfair policies, no one was consulted, the alternative of losing hundreds of millions of grant funding, assuming that that's going to be restored, which you said we don't know, could that have been worse than simply striking this agreement and saying, look, let's get this money back?
It didn't have to unfold this way. So I grant your point, which is a very important one, that Northwestern had been deprived of $790 million that had already been designated for our colleagues' research projects, and that money is very important to them. The Faculty Assembly in April of 2025 passed a series of resolutions encouraging Northwestern to resist unconstitutional and unlawful demands of the Trump administration. The Faculty Assembly in October of 2025 voted 595-4 against, quote, any capitulation on the part of Northwestern University to demands that undermine our rights and constitutional and democratic principles and so forth. Northwestern could have done what Harvard did and sued the Trump administration in the spring, as Harvard did. Harvard sued in the summer. And at the Faculty Assembly meeting in October, when Beenan said, if we don't go along with this, litigation is going to be expensive and it's going to take a long time, it was pointed out to him that Harvard, at the day of that meeting, had announced that it had received over 80% of its funding restored as a result of the litigation. So,
yeah.
Right, so he knew that was something that could be obtained if Northwestern, in an earlier time frame, had gone to court. And I think the real question is why Northwestern didn't exercise our legal rights, our institutional rights, and sue the Trump administration much earlier, instead of waiting and drawing this out and ending up with a deal that turns over Northwestern's policies to federal law enforcement and that doesn't give us any direct information about what exactly is going to be obtained. And one final point about the agreement. If the government doesn't go along with its side, the agreement itself restricts Northwestern from going to court to enforce it for over 2 months. So without the agreement, Northwestern could have gone to court tomorrow. Right. And with the agreement, we still don't have any certainty about what the funding is, and they've tied their own hands as far as suing if there's a problem.
All right. Well, Professor Jacqueline Stevens, thanks so much for your views. And again, we invite President Henry Beenan to come here and explain this agreement to us. Thank you again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And after the break, we hear from the wife of a legal asylum seeker who was detained by federal immigration officials. Welcome back. Today, a federal judge heard arguments that could lead to the release of dozens or more detainees being held in custody due to Operation Midway Blitz. One Chicago woman who just gained her citizenship says her husband, who is a legal asylum seeker escaping persecution in Turkey, was taken away by federal immigration authorities, and she wants to know why. Joining us is Eva Gurdevaya, whose husband, Enes Abak, a Turkish Kurd, is currently being held in custody. Thanks so much, Eva, for speaking with us, and we are certainly sorry about your situation. Your husband fled Turkey in 2022. He has been applying for asylum here in Chicago. What is your understanding as to why he was taken?
I honestly don't understand. I just think they're trying to get as many people as they can because, as I told earlier, to other journalists. We never missed a court date. We were trying to follow every letter of the law. We applied for political asylum. He had his master hearing. We were waiting for his individual hearing that should be happen in January 2026. They came and take him in front of our apartment building, and we provided this address by ourselves to them because it is required by law. He never tried to escape or hide anything, so we don't have any idea why it has happened.
And he doesn't have a criminal record in the United States?
No criminal records in the United States at all. Nothing.
So again, you know, it dispels the notion that that ICE was only, and federal agents were only going after people with criminal records. We know now that that's not true. What is the danger that if he does have to return to Turkey, not to mention how harmful it will be for your marriage?
The most important danger is like literally danger to his life. Unfortunately, I was born and raised in Russia, and unfortunately, the situation in Turkey and the situation in Russia about justice is very bad, even for like main nationalities. But Kurdish are minority, and they are encountering a lot of unjustifiable decisions just because on their nationality, unfortunately.
So it could be very dangerous if he returns to Turkey.
Yes, we are afraid for his life.
What, as an ethnic Kurd in Turkey, as you mentioned, what are your next steps then in terms of trying to, have you been able to locate him? Have you been able to talk to him?
Yeah, I mean, we have been tracking him since like they abducted him. My brother's wife, she is American, she was born here. She was helping me to locate him. Right now he's in Texas, El Paso, and finally yesterday he was able to call me. And unfortunately today I found out they hurt him very severely during the abduction. All his body is hurting, and he was requesting medical help.
So you're saying that during the abduction he got physically hurt and he needs medical help right now?
Yes.
What kind of injuries?
He didn't tell me. He is this kind of guy who will always protect me. The first time when he called me, he told me like, ICE took me, but please take care about yourself. I know you'll be so much stressed out, but please don't stop eating. Please drink water. I'm worried about you so much. I was like, baby, are you crazy? You are in jail. I'm at home with our cats, and you are worrying about me.
And Ava, what are your next steps?
So our next steps, we're still consulting with lawyers. I'm going to file a petition for our marriage. Hopefully everything will be done by tomorrow's night. And then we are going to go to federal court and proceed that his abduction was unlawful. We didn't break any law. So yeah, and then we will fight for him.
All right. Ava Gurdovaya trying to find her husband, Neza Bak, who is undergoing the asylum process here. Thank you so much. We will be following this, and we wish you all the best. And that is it for all of us tonight. We're back here tomorrow night at the same time. Stay warm, everybody.